Well, we're having some honest talks with our panel and moms about sharing their faith with their kids in practical ways. And we're helping parents whose teen and adult kids have chosen not to follow their faith to be free from shame and guilt as we share our personal stories of hope and redemption. That's coming up.
You are seen, you are heard, you are loved by God. You're not alone, you're fully known, you are loved by God.
All right, welcome back to See, Hear, Love, and Panel. Welcome.
Thank you.
Nicole, Senait, Brooke. It's so good to have you guys back again with all of your knowledge and wisdom, joy, love. I'll keep going, all the fun. Well, this is a really cool show because it's kind of like a 2-for-1. We're talking about faith in our kids, but in 2 different segments. The first segment we're talking about is how to share our faith with our kids. And this came up because I have a number of young moms who are like, how do I share my faith with my kids without being manipulative, passive aggressive, too much, and making it really natural for who I am to share my faith with my kids.
Yeah.
And then the second part of the show is because I have friends who are a little older who are really struggling with embarrassment, shame, and guilt because their kids are not following Jesus. They're not following their faith. And how do they reconcile that? So that's why I brought you all on to answer these questions and to solve all of it.
No pressure.
No pressure. So let's start with the first one. Talking to our friends who are young moms, young parents who are like, how do I share my faith with my kids? So we all have kids. So Brooke, your Shy is
Just almost 2.
almost 2.
Yeah.
And then Senait, you're
I have 3 that are 3 to 9.
3 to 9.
I have a daughter who's 26, and then I've got 2 stepsons who are 22 and 25.
Okay. And then I have 2 teens, 16 and 18.
So really in all different
So we're
stages
all
here.
in different stages. Okay, so
great.
there's a lot of like wisdom that can come out of this. So let's start with, what are some of the struggles and challenges that you have faced, that you might face, you think you might face, you have faced in sharing Jesus with your kids? Has there been any struggles or weirdness about it? So I think we have to be honest about that. Sometimes it can be.
Yeah, I think for me it was definitely a struggle, and sometimes still is, because I don't want to teach my kids the faith the way I learned it. And so because I want to do things differently, it's kind of like I don't know where to start. What resources, like how do I do this thing? And so there's a bit of a disorientation there. And then it's also really vulnerable. Like I want my kids to be Christian and I want to pass this down, but how do I do it in a way that's meaningful and that they can understand based on their developmental stage, right?
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, it's good.
Wow.
Yeah.
But for you, because you're coming into where Shy will be like, maybe asking some questions, or how will you and Steve,
this
share
is
your faith?
Such an interesting conversation for me because Shiloh, she's not even 2 yet, so obviously I can't have conversations with her. Yeah. But Shiloh comes everywhere with us. She's been involved in like 100 nights of worship since she's been born. And just the other day, I was singing my song, Still I Will, and I stopped. And she's over there and she goes, praise. And I have never heard her do that before. I didn't even know she could, she had the ability to do that. And it was actually a reminder to me that oh, she's watching my life. She's listening to my life. And for me at this stage anyways, just to be very intentional about how I live as a follower of Jesus, because my little one, she's picking everything up.
Yeah.
That's so good. And I think too what we because it's so personal for us, because our faith is so personal, and it's something that we live out personally and almost privately, that we lose track of how to communicate that in a way developmentally appropriate for our children. Yeah. One of the things that I've been hearing a lot from moms too is, because we read our Bible on our phone a lot of houses are missing Bibles on the table, Bibles on the coffee tables, and I think that's a really beautiful way to start sharing our faith with our kids, is that they can see the tattered Bible on the coffee table, and they can see their parents reading, and just even mentioning God and Jesus and talking about faith as naturally as if he's right in the room with us, I think is a great place to kind of start just making that familiar.
Yeah. And I think it's got to be natural, because I think there's sometimes, and I'll be honest about me, because Chris and I are in the work of mission, sometimes I'm not as intentional. I kind of go about my day and just assume that I'm talking about Jesus, or that they get it. And I think you're right that how we speak and how we bring Jesus into the conversation. But there are times where I'm like, I could have been a little bit more intentional in that conversation.
Right.
But sometimes I've made assumptions about my kids, or I'm just like, sometimes honestly, I'm just too lazy to talk about it. I mean, I know that that's weird to say as a bonus parent, but sometimes I'm just like, oh, then it's the effort and everything else. And I think that's one of the challenges I have of, again, being really intentional and thoughtful about doing it and making it kind of a rhythm in my life. I think that's one of the struggles. So we're talking about, again, thinking of our friends who are like, how do we do this? How would you naturally share with your kids? What are some things that you do, we should do for boys, for girls? It's different on how we kind of communicate and are with them. What would you say?
I mean, I have all girls, so we're all talkers. Everyone likes to communicate, but we also like to be together. And so some things that we've done in our house is create those rhythms. And so on Sundays, we have a little worship night where everyone gets to pick a song and we get to sing together. And I think thanks to COVID, like that kind of birthed these like rhythms in our home. And so everyone can look forward to that. And then even like prayer requests, right? We all have prayer requests, not just the kids, but also me and my husband, and looking towards the kids to pray for us as well. And so these little rhythms and like routines and traditions, I think, have become staples in our home, and I think they've helped us to share it naturally with the kids.
So what worked for you with your daughter?
Just organic conversations in the car, worship music in the background, asking questions like, I wonder what's going on for this woman as she's singing her music, or as she's written these lyrics. Or I just love hearing what people's relationships are with the Lord. And in my life, there's been a God rescued me, and from that story, I'm able to just talk about that rescue very openly. So I think just that kind of organic conversations.
I love that. Like, I feel like I'm mentally taking notes, like, as you spoke, because like just inviting them into our struggle, like even the everyday struggles, and allowing the kids to know, like, we're Christian because we need Jesus, not because I have it all together.
Yes.
And obviously age appropriately, like sharing some of those things along the way. Yeah, I like that.
I think too, I mean, again, the other thing about going to church, forcing your kids to youth group every night, all of this stuff. I mean, these are all things from like family of origin. And I think for us, like, we took the kids to church. We talk, Chris and I talk a lot about Jesus in a very personal way. So there's no way that you could come in and not know that we follow him.
Yes.
And so I think it's the organic.
Yes.
But there is a point where, sometimes it does do the adverse when you force a kid to go to church and you force them to go to Sunday school and you force them to go to youth group. Because it's like you want your kid to be immersed in this. Yeah. But on the other side, because I was a kid and I know that it also sometimes did the opposite when it wasn't you didn't enjoy it, or it wasn't a choice for you and you felt it was your parents doing it.
Yeah.
Did you guys find that?
Well, yeah, I think of my family. I've always been a Jesus-loving, church-going believer, because that's how my parents brought us up. But I also have a brother who does not go to church. And even when in his teenage years, my parents would like make us go to church, he was just like, this isn't for me. And so it's like you can do the thing as the parent to both kids the same way, and the way they respond to it. Like, so it's like, it's hard. Like I'm nervous for when Shiloh gets that old and I have to make those decisions of like, I just hope she chooses the right way. And
yeah, because a lot of us were raised in a way that like when you went to church, that equals salvation. And so when your kid's staying at home, that means they're not saved or they're not Christian enough. So I think breaking away from that comparison, or that it doesn't equate each other, right? One doesn't equate the other. But I think for me growing up, the greatest gift my parents gave me was allowing me to go to a different church once I was like 14, 15 years old. Like I didn't go to the same church as them because another church had a better like youth group. There were more young people there, and I just felt more comfortable. And so I think I was allowed to like own my own faith, and that helped me. And I think them trusting me that I was going there was also so beneficial.
Yeah. Wow. I think that's good. I mean, all of these points, because I think really listening to your kids, like spending time with them, how was your day? How are you showing Jesus? How are you going to show Jesus in your day today? And then at the end of the day, a worship time, prayer time. How was your day? And I think, again, what you're all saying, this organic, natural way of just living out your faith for your kids to watch, for your kids to look and model. And then I think at the end of the day, as they get older, it's like we did our best to show you, and now you have to choose. So I think these are all really, really good points. And so I think that's going to encourage people who are listening to say, here's some things that we need to do. But again, knowing your child, each individual one, and then having sort of an organic, natural relationship is the best way. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for your thoughts. Well, I recently went to an event in Oakville, Ontario, where I interviewed some moms and how they're sharing their faith with their kids in creative and practical ways. And I even spoke with some teenagers on if their parents are doing it right. And when we come back, we'll be sharing with you our thoughts when kids choose not to follow Jesus and how not to live in regret and shame and guilt because of it. That's coming up. So tell me, what is the most effective way you think parents should share their faith, share Jesus with their kids?
To show kindness towards others around them and to their kids. To be loving and kind.
Doing a Bible study with them or reading the Bible with them.
But you find me in my pain. Give me a reminder.
Why should a mom consider using this devotional with their sons or daughters?
Well, I have 8 children and 5 of them are boys. And the boys that I have, some are talkative and verbal and some of them are not. And what I observed with my non-talkative children is that they wrote down in their journal, or actually through text, because I did both. I did, with the younger ones I used the journal, with my older ones I used text. So they looked at the verses and then they shared through text what they had been learning. And I got things out of them on paper that they would never have said to me in person or just walking and talking. So there's something about the written word that gets something to talk. And I've heard things out of my boys that I've never heard before. It was really beautiful.
I think the most valuable thing that I've learned through this devotional is the memories that we cherish, the memories that we're building, the intimate times that we're having, just memorizing scripture and sharing our thoughts and ideas about what the scriptures mean, sharing how they're impacting us. The way it impacts my children is different from how it impacts me as an adult. So I just cherish the interactions and the moments that we can share, the conversations that we're having. I hope they cherish it too.
It was fun, like reading Psalm 119 and writing back and forth through the journal. It really made me feel loved from my mother. It helps you communicate with your mom and your family.
It strengthens your faith when reading Psalm 119 with your mom.
Season 8 is all about getting to know you, the See Her Love community. Here are 4 ways to connect. Number 1, watch See Her Love anytime and anywhere on YouTube and Castle Media. Number 2, listen to the See Her Love podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Number 3, engage by visiting seeherlove.com, or my personal favorite, follow at See Her Love on Instagram. Finally, number 4, give to See Her Love in Crossroads by visiting seeherlove.com/give.
Changed. It's all changed. But the Word of God remains unchanged.
I love listening to those women and teenagers at the event, just with their ideas of how to share their faith with boys and girls. It was really, really fun. But now we're going to transition into our second part about some of my friends who feel guilty, shame even, embarrassment, that their kids aren't following Jesus. And they went to church, they did devotions, they did worship night. They immersed them into a world of faith and Christianity, and yet their kids, even older teenagers to like 20-somethings, aren't following Jesus. So what would your thoughts and advice be to them? Because I feel like you're gonna help me help them by what you share, because I wanna know how to speak with them as they're kind of going through this. Nicole, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I would just say hang in there, because much like what you've said too in your life is, my parents did so much right. They got us heavily involved in church. So we were an active family in the church. They raised us to be strong Christians. And when I was a teenager, I just made some decisions. And so I went the other direction, and I lived for several years without following the Lord. And and he pursues his kids. And so what my parents did, I'm sure that they wore holes on the floor with their knees trying to pray me through that, but they loved me. They had open arms for me. There was no judgment. It was just love, and I always had a place with them. And because he pursues his kids, I came home. And I don't know that I can speak for everybody's story, but we do know that we serve a God who goes and he gets his kids, and our kids are more valuable to him than they are to us even.
Yeah.
And he wants them home even more than we do.
Yes. So hang in there, parents.
Hang in there, parents.
Yeah. I like that, hang in there.
Yeah.
I mean, I would advise parents to grieve a little bit, you know, because we all have this imagined future for our kids, and when we get to those places and things don't pan out the way we hoped, it's sad and it's heavy. And so grieve any way you know how, you know, submit that grief to God and focus on the present, because you could still have a more imagined future, like things that you're thinking of in the future, like that you want to see happen, and kind of predict, if my kid continues on this path, this is where they're heading. But that is not your job. Your job is not to futurize.
Yeah.
You know, it's not helpful. And so just focus on the present and grieve what you've lost in the present.
That's so good. Senait, like giving permission to grieve.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you're just like, suck it up, hang in there, front, manage. Don't let anybody know actually what's going on in our family so that we look like the perfect Christian family.
Yeah.
No.
No.
Like I think the grieving and allowing trusted people to come in and grieve with you.
Yes. Yes.
And then helping them and, you know, one another saying, hang in there. Like be that community says, hang in there. We've got your kid.
Yeah.
That's really good.
I was often, when I had come back to the Lord, I thought, you know, I'm just over here building my testimony. And I think that, you know, we all have our different journeys, and God can use every single piece of our story.
Yeah.
And sometimes that mess touches other people that think they're too far gone for God. And it can help people feel like, okay, there is a homecoming possible for me. I'm not too far gone for God.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Not too far gone.
Well, as you were talking, I was reminded of Psalm 23, where it just says, every day your love and goodness follows me. And I think, like, for parents to speak that over the lives of their children, because like you said, it's really sad and it's really painful when your children's life doesn't pan out the way you thought or hoped or dreamt it would. And just to remember that, like you said, God loves them more than you do, if you can even fathom that. And just to remain in that truth, grieve, feel your pain, but remain in the truth.
It's good. You know, as you were saying about your parents, you know, part of my story and testimony is that my parents prayed like every night. So when I was out clubbing in Toronto and doing all kinds of things as a prodigal girl would do, and for those who don't know, prodigal, it's like, you know, literally leaving my faith and anything but God and going my own way. And my parents prayed. Like prayed. And they're just like, God, have somebody connect with Melinda. God, protect Melinda. And for years, I ran away. For years, I didn't want to do anything with God, with church, with accountability, because I wanted fun, validation, dancing, everything. And yet you're right, God pursues, because when I hit rock bottom, because there always seems to be that, and I could not go any further, I had a choice. And it was like God, it was like whispers. It was drunk people, and I started talking to me about my life, all these people that God put in my path to say, it's time, come home. Like, it's enough, Melinda, you know, like what a disaster it really was. But, and so I made the decision. And so, you know, you're right. I think hang in there and grieve. And I think, you know, that's part of, you know, I think encouraging people who are like, I did all I can, all I could.
Yeah. And one more thing, the consistent theme I've heard with your parents and yours is that your parents created a home where you belonged regardless of your faith. And like everyone wants to belong, and so I belong in this home, and that you love me. And like the prodigal son's father, like when I come home, you're going to be running towards me with open arms.
I think that's it. I think that you're right. I always had a home that I could go to, that I was loved no matter what. I mean, did they approve of the decisions? Not at all. But did they love me? 100%.
Conditionally,
Unconditionally. And I think that's really, really key. Is, you know, as we're sharing our stories, you know, and I don't, you know, we're kind of getting glimpses of our own stories of sort of going away from God. What was it that brought you back? What was it that brought you back? Or even in, like, I mean, again, it doesn't have to be a big, grandiose story, but what has brought you back to God? Because I think that's something we could pray into, but also be hopeful about too.
I feel like I was going to say this a second ago, and I had to stop myself from bursting into tears. But I think my mom, as a prayer warrior and just like such a faithful woman, that even when I wasn't serving the Lord or making right decisions, like she always stayed the course. And like whatever it was that she faced in her life, it was she would always turn it to be about Jesus. And so I hope that doesn't sound too cliche, but that's just the kind of woman my mom is. She's a very unique, special woman. And I think honestly, her faithfulness like reined me back in and reminded me of like, oh, I could be like her if I smartened up.
Yeah.
And I want to be like her, you know? So it was
Powerful.
yeah.
That is really powerful.
It's a good reminder to me, you know, as
Yeah.
now I have a little girl to like, be faithful, stay the course. And
Good.
yeah.
Yeah. For me, I hit a rock bottom several years ago when my husband of almost 20 years decided that he was done with our marriage. And while I had a relationship with the Lord, I didn't have a really intimate relationship with the Lord. And I say I was launched into the valley of rejection and betrayal, and I face planted hard. And the valley is God's best workbench. And so he rushed in and he scooped me up in that valley. And this is the redemption story, right? So I'm so grateful for the valley because I'm way better after being broken than I was before.
Yeah.
And so he puts together, he does the beauty for ashes thing. And so that was the homecoming piece for me ultimately, because I think we can walk at a distance with the Lord and say we've got that, but when we have that, for many of us, I learned the hard way, when we have that crash course, there's no going back. I'm a faithful follower on this side of the valley.
And nobody wants their kids to crash.
To crash, they don't.
But
But
if the
then,
Lord can come and meet
Yeah.
their kids in the valley like that, then like,
Oh, yeah.
okay, we trust you, Lord.
That's right. Yeah.
Right?
And the tears and the grieving and that's hard. The valley is hard. But it's fruitful
yeah.
when we lean on Him.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, again, like my parents with, you're saying love, unconditional love, and praying. And there is something I want to remind parents about is that God is always pursuing your kid. Like He loves your kid enough to use incredible means to try to bring them back.
Yeah.
But then again, and we've talked about this, at some point though, as your child becomes an adult, they have a choice to make.
That's right.
And you can't be manipulative or try, because a relationship with anybody, if it's manipulated, isn't love.
That's right.
It's not a relationship. And you want your child to be in a true loving relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
And so that's hard. There's also that grieving if they, as an adult, choose not to go that way.
Yeah.
But I think love is the best thing. Praying, grieving, modeling your faith. I think for my parents too, as missionaries, modeling faith no matter what helped me go, okay, I've seen my parents go through some really tough things in Asia, and now I see them. And so thank you. Those wonderful stories. And I just love that there is hope. There's hope for your child if they have gone away from the faith, because God loves them so much. Well, I can't wait to hear from Tryphena, who's in the studio right now, share about her thoughts on sharing your faith with your kids, or if your kids have left the faith. And she's going to be talking from Mark 12:30 to 31. Hey, Tryphena, we're ready to hear from you and excited to hear what you have to say.
Hey, Melinda. Hey, ladies. It is so great to be in studio today, just to be witness to your own journeys and your own conversation around parenting. I personally am so glad we're having this conversation, because honestly, parenting can be a lot. Having to sift through the countless parenting philosophies, I find that to be very overwhelming. I often find myself in these moments of overwhelm returning to Mark chapter 12, where Jesus is confronted by a teacher of the law and is asked, of all the laws, what is the most important? Keep in mind, at that time, the Jewish people had over 600 laws they were required to follow. And I love how Jesus answers this in verse 30. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, with all your mind and with all your strength. The second is this: love your neighbor as yourself. Note, he didn't say to love your neighbor instead of yourself, but there's an implied command to care for self in there. What if we were to take Jesus at his word? Not that the hundreds of parenting philosophies aren't so important, but what would it look like for us to pause and allow Jesus' priorities to become ours? To honestly love God, love our neighbor, which in this case is our children, and to love ourselves. What would happen if we allowed ourselves to show up authentically before God, which, let's be honest, is everywhere, in all of our beautiful and messy parts? What would it look like to love God with our heart, a heart that may or may not be triggered by our child's strong emotions, a soul that may be feeling weary and discouraged, a mind that's constantly racing with that never-ending to-do list, or a strength that doesn't always feel very strong? To show up in all of this messy beauty is authentic and loving to God. And what if we were to love our children for who they are in their messy beauty, in their eccentricities, their creativities, their anxieties, their neurodivergences, all of it? This is sharing in that love. One of the hardest parts of parenting is that it's not linear. In every part of the world, 1 + 1 will equal 2. But in parenting, 1 + 1 can equal -53. So be gracious with yourself. Honor God in the way you show up authentically, and when the results of parenting don't look the way you want them to, can we go back to the simple question, the one thing Jesus asks of us, what does love require of me?
Thank you, Tryphena. That was fantastic.
So good.
You can kind of breathe after that, like, okay, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
What does love require of us? Your thoughts about what she shared?
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that she said 1 + 1 around the world equals 2. But like when it comes to parenting, it does not always equal 2, especially, you know, from family to family. But I mean, what does love require of us? It just requires of us to do our best, to give what we can, what we know, how, like the best way we know how.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so convicting because like we all love our children, you know, but what does our love look like? And how might we be communicating certain things that don't look like love? Don't feel like love. And it's like, oh, really challenged me.
Yeah, that's good. And the love piece, what does love look like as a parent, is it might look different with different children. And so what her word kind of reminded me of is, you know, as a good parent, God, how does God love us? He lets us be the people He's designed us to be.
Yes.
And to watch your children kind of be their own person and to love them through that is powerful too.
You know, I think that is powerful because a lot of times we want our kids to be what we want them to be. We want them to look like us and speak like us and be really respectful. I mean, of course, that's good, but being what we want. And in what Tryphena was just saying, it's like love requires different things. Love can require letting go of control.
That's right.
And love can require, you know, wanting them to be the way we want because that's what love requires. And when God looks at us, I wonder what He thinks of us and continues to love us. So that's really powerful. Any last encouragement or thoughts to a mom struggling, like, want to share my faith, help me, this has been really rich, but is there any last minute encouragements? Brooke, with you.
Well, I think to speak out like with what you said, Senait, but sometimes it's hard to say the things that you want to say about Jesus to your kids because you don't want to come off a certain way or, you know, bring in your own childhood traumas or whatever. So just like live it out. It's okay. Just be faithful and just show that you love Jesus with how you live and how you interact with others. And your kids, they're taking note.
Yeah.
They are.
Good.
I guess embracing the imperfections, like you are going to sound cheesy sometimes. Sometimes it's not going to make any sense. Your kids might be bored that you're trying to do devotion, but like just keep trying, pivot if necessary. It's going to be messy. It's not going to be linear, but God is with you, right? And Jesus is holding your hand as you walk through this road of parenting, and you're not alone through it all.
Yeah, that's good.
That's good, and it's okay to let your kids know this is really important to me and I don't really know how to share it actively with you, and to be curious in the response and requiring responses from your kids. Like just sit in curiosity, I think is just creating that space where comfortable dialogue and safe dialogue can happen.
Amazing.
It's beautiful.
Well, Nicole, Senait, Brooke, thank you so much for your wisdom and for your shared experiences and just for so much. Thank you so much for being with us. And to viewers and listeners, I hope that what we shared really encouraged you and resonated with you. Let love drive everything. Let love be the thing. If you want more information, seehearlove.com. And know, as you parent, when it's -53 and not 2, know that you are seen, heard, and deeply loved by God. Thanks for joining us.
See Hear Love thanks our partners who make this show possible.
Thank you for your ongoing support of Crossroads, a supporter-funded, nonprofit organization and member of the Canadian Centre for Christian Charities. Thanks to faithful people like you, we are able to continue producing See Hear Love. You can write to Crossroads, P.O. Box 5100, Burlington, Ontario, L7R 4M2, or visit crossroads.ca to learn more about our programs.